They didn't even turn to look when I said it. "I used to run my own kitchen," I said once quietly, as I mopped the floor behind the line. Nobody answered. Well, except Anthony. He snorted. "You mean like at a summer camp?" he muttered, flipping a half-burned scallop onto the pass. The others laughed. I smiled to myself, same way I did every night. The truth is, folks only hear what they think you're worth. And if your apron's wet, your shoes are taped, and your hands smell like bleach, they don't listen past the mop handle. They just called me the sponge, like I was part of the sink, like I lived under it. The job was supposed to be temporary. Fill the fridge, keep the lights on. I'd taken the night shift at Velvet and Grain, the kind of restaurant where the host wears a suit better than most grooms. Everything inside was brass and moody lighting, black napkins and overpriced steak. They called it New American, but there wasn't much new about it. Just a lot of yelling and theater. I was the closing dishwasher, technically. But somehow that meant cleaning walk-ins, scraping out fryer grease, and once swapping out a leaking urinal pipe while the manager smoked outside. Still, I was grateful. Because I needed quiet. Because sometimes you got more done in the shadows and no one notices a ghost in the dish pit. But that night, that particular Friday, the whole place was crackling. "Mayor's coming," said Chef Rick, pacing. The kitchen like he was born with a knife in his hand. "Private dining, 8 p.m., 8-course tasting. No mistakes." He glanced around at his staff like a drill sergeant inspecting boots. No one looked at me. They never did. Just the dishwasher, the sponge, the ghost. I kept wiping down the stainless steel counter, humming under my breath. Then he added, "We'll feature the caviar brioche, the beet tartare, and that stupid lobster bisque he likes. I want it silky, not clumpy. Silky, you hear me?" "Yes, chef," the team replied in unison. I just kept my head down. My hands moved on their own, rinsing knives and ladles, organizing cutting boards like puzzle pieces. Habits never leave. Not when they're burned into your bones. At 7:42 p.m. the mayor walked in, bald, broad-shouldered, followed by a wife who looked like she hadn't blinked since the last election. The servers stood straighter. Wine glasses gleamed. Chef Rick tied his apron twice, and at 7:59 p.m. the panic began. "Where's the veal?" barked Rick. "It's still resting," stammered Marco, the meat cook. "You rested it out." "Of existence. You rested it into hell," Rick roared. Then the bisque curdled, literally. Too hot, too fast. Heavy cream split like oil and regret. Chef Rick screamed, shoved a pot across the range. It clanged to the floor, splattering lobster guts onto my shoes. The room froze. "You mop it, Sponge," he hissed. "That's the only thing you're good at." I stared at the broken bisque, then at the prep board, then at the mayor laughing, lightly in the private room one wall away. No one noticed I didn't grab the mop. I rolled my sleeves instead. I didn't need to think. My hands were already moving. I lifted the pot from the floor, wiped down the rim, and dumped the split soup down the prep sink like it offended me. I reached for the base stock I'd seen Marco hiding near the back fridge, the one I'd watched. Him over salt 3 hours ago. I didn't use it. Instead, I grabbed fennel trimmings, a sliver of leek, a touch of cognac from the locked cabinet that wasn't really locked, and built it back from nothing. No one spoke. No one moved. They all stared like I'd grown a second head. You can't be in there," Marco tried. "I'm just fixing what got dropped," I said softly. Calm. Crisp. Chef said no mistakes. I could feel Rick watching, his jaw clenching. "Get away from my line," he growled. I didn't flinch. "Or you can serve the mayor split bisque and raw veal. Up to you." He froze. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. But he didn't stop me either. There's a certain silence in a kitchen when someone knows what they're doing. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's just motion. Clean, efficient rhythm in heat. I seared down lobster shells, flambéed with a pour of old cognac, reduced until the air smelled like patience and purpose. I added a real mirepoix, this time, not the pre-chopped frozen cubes Chef Rick used when no one was looking. "Where'd you learn that flambé trick?" said Janelle, one of the servers, slowly inching forward. I didn't answer, just strained the broth through a chinois, added cream and whisked. This time slow, gentle, no clumps. When I tasted it, I closed my eyes. It was perfect, the way it used to be. Back when the food truck was mine, before the fire, before the city permits and landlord games, before I lost everything but the apron. Tied at my waist now. "Table 12 is waiting," barked Rick again. He looked shaken. He pointed at the plated bisque I'd just garnished with micro-fennel and a crack of white pepper, then back at me. You bring it." Head snapped around. "I don't serve," I said, but he shook his head. "They'll ask questions. If I go out there and it's wrong..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I wiped my hands. Removed my gloves. Picked up the tray like I was walking toward judgment. The room was too quiet when I entered. The mayor looked up mid-sentence. His wife stopped swirling her pinot. A server in the corner adjusted their tie, eyes wide. "Your lobster bisque," I said, setting the bowls down gently. The mayor leaned forward, curious, took a slow spoonful and smiled. "This," he said, eyes narrowing, "this tastes like Le Clé back in Marseille." I nodded once. "I studied with someone who did time there," I offered, calm, barely more than a whisper. The mayor looked me up and down. "You're not the head chef, are you?" I paused. "Just a second." "No, sir. Just the dishwasher." His eyebrows lifted. Then he laughed, loud, warm from the chest. "Well, fire the chef and promote the dishwasher," he said. "Best thing I've tasted in a decade." Through the half-glass kitchen door I saw every face freeze. Rick's pale and stunned, Marco's slack-jawed, Janelle's eyes shining like she'd just watched a twist ending in a movie. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just turned, stepped back into the heat and said, "Veal's next." They didn't look at me the same after that, not entirely. Not yet. But something cracked. When I walked back into the kitchen, Rick didn't scream. He didn't throw anything, he just watched, silent, breathing through his nose like he was trying to swallow rage and confusion in the same gulp. I walked past him and picked up the veal. Marco stepped aside without a word. His hands were still, trembling. The veal was over-trimmed, too lean. Whoever butchered it didn't know what fat was for, but I worked with it, pounded it flatter, rubbed it with rosemary and a whisper of smoked salt, then flash-seared it until the edges whispered caramel, while the center stayed soft as confession. Then I plated it. Not the heavy, overstacked nonsense Rick liked, but clean, minimal. A spoon of the balsamic reduction I kept in the back fridge, the one no one ever used because they thought it was soy sauce. "Table 12, I said. Rick didn't move. "I don't serve." I added again. This time he nodded, and Janelle stepped forward like it was gospel. From the kitchen window I watched the mayor take the first bite. He didn't smile this time. He just stared down at the plate, chewing slowly. Then he pointed to the veal with his fork, turned to his wife and whispered something that made her nod like she'd been waiting years to agree. Janelle returned with wide eyes. "He wants to know your name," she said. Rick started to open. His mouth. She cut him off without looking at him. "Not yours. His." I didn't answer. Not right away. I went back to the dish pit, rinsed my hands, wiped down the trays like always, pretended the silence in the kitchen wasn't thicker than the lobster base. Rick followed, stood behind me for a long second. Then, "How long you been cooking like that?" My back was to him. I let the steam rise between us since I was 16. He hesitated. "You ever work under someone before?" I finally turned to face him. Not angry. Just tired. I ran a truck called Midnight Bayou. Used to park by the wharf. Rick blinked. No way. That gumbo truck? That was you? I nodded once. My fire. My loss. My fault. His mouth opened, then closed. I could see it. The war. In his face. Chef Rick had spent 5 years building velvet and grain. 5 years climbing over people like me. People he didn't notice until they saved his name with a spoon. He walked off without another word. By 10 p.m. the kitchen was quiet. No slamming pans, no barking orders. I'd redone 2 more dishes. Just casually, just to help. And every single one got a compliment sent back. One from a well-known food critic seated quietly by the bar. Another from a chef visiting from Atlanta who asked to speak to whoever made the creme brulee. Marco was slumped on a milk crate in the back hallway. Janelle kept watching me like I'd grown a crown and was pretending not to notice. Even the new prep kid Terrell, barely 16 and nervous, whispered as I passed, "Can you show me how to cut onions like that sometime?" I nodded, and just said, tomorrow. That's when the menu would change. They just didn't know it yet. By Saturday morning, the rumors had legs, not just in the kitchen, not just among the waitstaff, but at the farmer's market, the wine shop, even over at that overpriced cafe 2 blocks down where the pastry chef thought truffle oil belonged in. Everything. I could feel it when I walked in. Janelle greeted me with a small nod like we shared some secret pact. Marco didn't speak at all. Just avoided eye contact and pretended to be deeply fascinated by peeling carrots. And Rick? He didn't even come in for the morning prep, a first in the 3 months I'd worked there. It was Terrell who said it out loud. "You know talking about you, right? I was rinsing shallots, I didn't look up." "Who?" "Everybody said the mayor left a 5-star review last night. Said it wasn't even on Yelp. It was a phone call, straight to the restaurant group's VP. I raised an eyebrow. "You hear all that while dicing parsley?" Terrell grinned. "Nah. Heard it when Rick stormed in this morning and kicked a stack of ramekins across the walk-in." The lunch crowd was slow, but there was a different energy. The sous chef, a lean, quiet woman named Brielle, who'd always kept her head down and her apron clean, started deferring to me, just in small ways, asking questions, letting me taste the soup, nodding when I made a suggestion. That was new. But the real shift came at 4:17 p.m. That's when the group manager walked in, black suit, pressed shirt, clipboard in hand. His name was Julian, and his shoes probably cost more than my rent. He walked straight into the kitchen without taking off his sunglasses. "Where's the head chef?" he asked. Rick had just arrived, like the universe had set him up for a joke. "Right here," he said, wiping his hands. Julian didn't look at him. He pointed past him at me. I meant him. The silence was so deep you could hear the burners hissing. Rick turned slowly. His mouth opened to object, to reclaim whatever title he'd felt slipping. But Julian didn't wait. "I've had 3 calls today, one from the mayor's office, one from Chef Anita in Atlanta, and one from the Chronicle's food critic. All of them said the same thing. Who was the new guy?" Harry finally removed his sunglasses, sharp brown eyes, cold smile. "I come to find out the new guy has been here for 3 months, mopping floors and fixing burnt bisque." I didn't respond, just waited. Julian stepped closer. "You're Marcus Devreaux, aren't you?" That name hadn't been spoken in a long time. Not out loud, not since the food truck burned, not since the insurance claim vanished, not since I left my culinary school diploma in a shoebox under a leaking pipe in my old storage unit. I nodded once. Rick tried to cut in. "This is ridiculous. He's a dishwasher. This is my kitchen." Julian turned slowly. "No, Rick, this was your kitchen." He held out the clipboard. "This is a 2-week rotation agreement. Marcus is now interim executive chef. You'll stay on it for transition purposes, or not. That's your choice." Rick's hands were shaking, but he didn't argue, because the tide had turned, because the mayor's wife had tagged the restaurant in her Instagram story with the words, "Best meal in years." Because even egos know when the check has been signed by someone else. He stormed out without grabbing his knives, and no one stopped him. By dinner service, I wasn't in the dish pit anymore. I was on the line, head of it. I called the tickets. I modified the risotto. I told Marco to slow down the veal and showed Terrell how to make béarnaise from scratch. And at the pass, Janelle whispered, "You gonna put your name on the new menu?" I looked at her. Then at the dishes lined up under heat lamps, glistening like prayers, answered, "Not yet," I said. "Let the food speak first." Sunday night brought storms, not just outside. The sky cracked open above Velveton Grain around 7:30 p.m., lightning painting the dining room in blue flashes. But inside the mood was warm, almost electric. The reservations list was double booked, and for the first time in 3 months, people were asking for the chef by name, even if they didn't know it. "I'll have whatever he made last night," said a woman in a red dress, handing her menu back before reading it. Julian watched from the bar, swirling a glass of something dark, half smiling. I didn't acknowledge him. I was too busy keeping the kitchen breathing. We'd added 2 new dishes, a crawfish and cornbread hush pie that had never been touched by this restaurant's former menu, and a black-eyed pea cassoulet with duck confit that Janelle swore made a man cry at table 9. But even as the staff moved sharper, lighter, more confident, I felt it. Something shifting. Tugging at the edges of calm, it was the scent, faint, sharp, like soaked wood and old smoke. It dragged me back. Before the fire, Midnight Bayou was my everything. I built it with my brother, Lucien. Same eyes, same quiet nature. Only difference, he knew how to talk to people. He handled the customers. I handled the flame. We made a name for ourselves fast. 2 Creole brothers bringing soul to the sidewalk, parked outside jazz bars and late-night poetry lounges. The lines used to wrap around the corner. Cops waved us through traffic. Then came the permits, the accidental ticketing, the mysteriously delayed inspections. Then, one night, a lock jammed from the outside. We lost everything in under 7 minutes. The fire marshal said faulty wiring. I knew better. We had enemies, silent ones in suits, landlords who wanted us off their block, restaurants that saw us as competition. Lucien said we'd rebuild, but he left 2 weeks later, took a job out of state, didn't say goodbye. The scent faded. The present returned. "Chef," Terrell called from the pass. "Table 15 asked for you." I frowned. "No one should be asking for me. We have a full dining room." They said it was personal. He handed me a folded napkin, inside, written, in pen. "Still think you make the best grits?" Li froze. The kitchen kept moving behind me, but my chest wasn't. I stepped through the double doors, past servers and wine carts, toward table 15 tucked into the back corner under a low-hung chandelier. He looked older, more beard, less swagger. But it was him, Lucien. He stood when he saw me like we were still brothers, and nothing had ever cracked. "Marcus," he said. Didn't speak. He nodded slowly, held up a fork. "Came for the cassoulet, stayed for the silence." I pulled out the chair across from him. "You left," I said. He exhaled. "And you buried yourself in a dish pit. So we're even." We sat like that for a moment, strangers with matching scars. He pushed a plate toward me. "Yours is better." "Than mine ever was. Always was." I didn't need the compliment, but it still struck something quiet in me. He leaned forward. "I got news about the fire." My fingers stiffened. He looked around, then dropped his voice. "They wanted the land, not just the truck. Your name was on the lease, not mine." I leaned back slowly. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said, You didn't just lose a truck that night, you lost your reputation on purpose. The kitchen door swung open behind me. Chef, Janelle said, VIP table just arrived. Some suits from the Chronicle. I stood. Lucian. Didn't. I'll be here when you're done, he said. I might not come back. I know, he replied. That's why I came now. I walked back into the kitchen, heart heavier, hands steady. Because tomorrow I'd deal with the past. Tonight, I had a kitchen to lead. Monday morning, no storm, but the air was thick. The kind that made your shirt cling to your back before the sun even broke. I came in early. Before Julian, before the staff. Even before the morning delivery van backed up to the alley dock. The Tissot restaurant was quiet. Lights off, just the soft click of my boots on tile and the metallic scent of cold steel. I unlocked the prep fridge, pulled out the new ingredients I'd personally ordered, sassafras root, duck livers, and a sack of Carolina gold rice. Today wasn't about playing safe. Today, we wrote the new menu. By the time the others arrived, I had 6 dishes scrawled across parchment in thick strokes of charcoal pencil, stained slightly with olive oil and smoke. I'd taken down the old chalkboard menu in the front window and wiped it bare. "Where's the braised short rib?" Marco asked, half awake, scanning the empty board. "Gone," I said. He blinked. "And the beet carpaccio?" I looked at him over my shoulder. "That too." Janelle smirked and started brewing a fresh pot of chicory coffee. Terrell whispered under his breath, "It's finally happening." By 2 p.m. Julian arrived, clipboard in hand again, but this time no sunglasses, just a look of wary curiosity as he stepped into the kitchen. "You sure about this?" he asked, eyeing the unfamiliar words on the printed mock-up. "Every dish," I said. Julian exhaled. "Some of these are bold. Southern soul in a fine dining house. You're rewriting the identity." "No," I replied. "I'm correcting it." He didn't argue, because deep down he knew. This place had soul wallpapered over with foie gras and ego. Velvet and grain had always been smoke and mirrors, crafted for people who liked the performance more than the plate. But now, it was mine. Even if my name wasn't on the deed yet. At 6:45 p.m. I stood in the kitchen while Janelle dimmed the front lights and flipped the sign to open. The first order rang in 15 minutes later. Table 2, party of 4, Chronicle staff, and then it began. I plated with intention. Panid rabbit with mustard gravy and purple yam puree, scented with a clean rim. Butter bean succotash stacked over wild rice grits, each spoonful hand-fanned like a hymn. Even the garnish whispered purpose, pickled okra spears, fried shallot curls, herbs folded like secrets. Every dish that left, that pass was more than food. It was testimony. But just as we hit stride, just as the kitchen found that quiet groove where breath syncs with fire, the front host came jogging back, whispering, "Chef, someone's asking to speak with you. Says she's from city permitting, wants to talk in private." My jaw locked. Julian heard it too. He looked up from the end of the kitchen, frowning. "Now?" I asked. "She says it's urgent." I wiped my hands and followed her out front, and froze, because standing there, crisp beige suit, clipboard in, hand was a woman I hadn't seen in over a year. Her name was Lenora Quinn, the inspector, the one who shut us down before the fire, the one who always lost our paperwork, the one who called me Marcus the Mess when I'd dare ask why permits kept vanishing, and behind her, waiting quietly with his arms folded, Lucienne. She raised her eyebrows, not quite surprised, not quite ashamed either. "Well, well," she said, still standing. "I didn't expect that." I didn't answer. I didn't move. Lucienne stepped forward. "She came to make you an offer," he said quietly. "She's working with the same investor group now. Wants to talk about licensing. Expansion? I laughed once. Cold. She didn't blink. You've built a name again, Marcus. They know it. And they want in early this time. Let us help you open more. We'll back you. Fast-track your permits. Press coverage. You can lead the brand. I stepped forward, eyes never leaving hers. You tried to erase me. That's business, she replied. You just happened to survive it. A long pause. Then I said what I'd been waiting to say for 2 years. I'm not interested in partnerships built on arson and silence. She stiffened. Lucien's lips pressed into a tight line. I pointed toward the dining room. You want to taste something real? Book a table. Then I walked back into my kitchen, my house now, and said to Janelle, add one more to the menu board. She raised a brow. What's the name? I smiled, grabbed a piece of chalk and wrote in bold strokes, Devreaux. Tuesday morning I arrived to a line. Not a few folks, not a curious couple here and there. A line, wrapped around the corner. Phones out, cameras ready. People pointing through the window like it was a museum, like something holy was about to be. Unveiled inside. Julian was already pacing near the host stand, newspaper in hand, the Chronicle, front page of the lifestyle section. The dishwasher who rewrote the menu, Devreaux's quiet coup at velvet and grain. Right under it, a full-color photo of me, mid-plating, head down, a wisp of steam rising from a cast-iron pan like incense. The piece read like legend. What began as a whisper in the kitchen has erupted into a revolution on the plate. Marcus Devreaux, once, hidden in the shadows of velvet and grain's dish pit, has brought a fire back to the city's culinary scene that's as soulful as it is deliberate. I didn't finish it, didn't need to, because I had okra to pickle. By the time the doors opened, reservations were fully booked. For the next 4 weeks, Julian had to bring in security just to manage the walk-ins. The host kept saying, "Sorry, sir, he's not taking interviews." "No, ma'am, Chef Devreaux doesn't do TikToks. He's focused on the food." Inside the kitchen it was business, but tighter, faster, stronger. Marco didn't just follow orders. He sought guidance. Asked if I could taste his spice blend. Took notes. Terrell had graduated to full prep cook. Janelle had started pitching wine pairings. And they worked. The whole team was a team. Even Brielle, quiet and careful, started playing with new desserts. She'd been testing a praline bread pudding with smoked banana cream and hadn't stopped until it nearly made me cry. I let her name the dish. She called it Sunday Best. That night, while I was wiping the edge of a plate before it hit the pass, Julian walked up behind me. "I need to talk to you," he said. I didn't look up. "If it's about franchising, the answer's no." He chuckled, low and dry. "No, bigger than that." He slipped a folder beside me. Inside, a letter of acquisition. He wanted to rename the restaurant, remove velvet and grain, replace it with Devreaux. Just that. No prefix, no pretense, just my name, my food, my story. I closed the folder. "I'm not a brand," I said. Julian nodded slowly. "No, you're a movement. But movements need a name." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet, because all I could think of was Lucien's voice that night. They wanted your name off the lease, and now everybody wanted it on the sign. Funny how the world turns. Around midnight. After close, I stepped outside alone. No staff, no customers. Just the soft hum of the city breathing slow again. That's when I heard her voice. Lenora sitting on the bench across the street, legs crossed, same beige suit from the day before. "Still saying no to the deal?" she asked. I nodded once. "You think pride will keep you safe?" "No," I said, "but it kept me clean." She tilted her head. "I was told you'd sell, that once your name had value again, you'd do what every man does, cash out." I looked at her. Steady. My name doesn't have value now because of cash. It has value because I didn't bend. She stood, brushed her sleeve, smiled like a snake. We'll see how long that lasts. Then she disappeared into the night. Back inside, Janelle had left a note on my station. In her looping script, "You may not be a brand, but you're a mirror chef. Keep showing them who they are."